Hey everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I hope you're all doing great today. So we are going to be turning up one of the bespoke blanks that we made last week, which turned out pretty cool. It was a little bit different than what I usually do. You guys know that I usually try to make things as opaque as possible. I'm cut from the cloth of kit pens, you know, like hiding tubes all the time. And so I just tend to shy away from things that are translucent. But I'm starting to dip my toes. You know, we've done quite a few different things lately. As the bespoke, I think the bespoke pens are so much better because whatever the blank looks like, it's going to continue to look like that for the most part. If you're just doing bespoke, if you have to hide the tubes, you know, you got to paint the blank or you got to paint the tube or do something. And a lot of times it, you know, especially if it's transparent, the blank is not going to look the same. It's going to alter the look of the blank completely in some cases. And so that's why I always try to hammer in as much mica powder or liquid pigment or whatever in blanks usually. But these ones turned out pretty good. So let's see here. I'm going to switch over to the overhead. Check these out. And we did an interesting thing. So you'll notice all the dark blue. That was the navy blue Color Lab pigment. And we added, you know, less. So, you know, in the past few weeks, we've been kind of playing with, oh, how much do you need to add to hide tubes? But if you add just a few drops, you get kind of a translucent color. And I mean, if you add like one drop, it's going to be, you know, see-through. So, man, what do you guys think? These turned out pretty cool, I think. And frankly, I can't remember. What did we actually put in these things? We put Galactic goes gold. Golden Starlight. We did go with Galactic goes violet and regular Starlight and then the navy blue. And then we added a little bit of clear too. So you see there's some areas where we have just kind of clear. So it's kind of an interesting thing. This is going to be one of those things that'll be interesting to see how these turn out, especially the ones that have, you know, a lot of clear. Now, the one drawback, even with the bespoke pen, is we're going to have to do some sanding on the inside of these, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it's not really that bad. At first thought, I'm like, oh, sanding the inside of a blank, sanding the outside is not fun. But with the right implements, you can get pretty good results, and you don't have to necessarily, there's like a spectrum. If you want it to be dead clear, like you're going for a demonstrator pen, which what that means, if you're not familiar with it, in the bespoke pen world, demonstrators are like dead see-through, like totally clear. You can see like the ink inside and all that kind of stuff, the internal components. So that's what demonstrator means. If you're going for that, like a full demonstrator, then you know you really want to try to get that inside like polished, like dead clear, perfect. You know, no scratches and all that stuff, so you can really see through there, and it looks like, you know, perfect, I guess. But you know, you can notch it down a little bit, just like we do for like the satin finish or the matte finishes. You know, you can just lightly sand and try and get kind of an even scratch pattern, but drop it down and it'll be a little bit obscured, but you can still see through there. That's totally acceptable as well, I think. Some people may disagree with that if they want perfect, but you know, you can kind of vary how much sanding you do on the inside and all that stuff, and I don't know, it's pretty fun. You can have a lot of fun with it. So let's see here. My computer may be sending the feed to 2 locations. I don't think so. Maybe. Is it? What is this? What does that mean? Sorry, we're stopping because Michael McEwen had a thing. I don't think I'm sending anything to 2 places. What does that mean even? Oh, Vinny. Okay, sorry. I was like, wait, what? What's happening? Oh, okay. So anyway, is there an echo? No echo. Okay. Oh, I see the echo thing. Okay. Anyway, we're back on track. So I think it's going to be fun. So I've already cut one up, and I've actually already poured. So these are going to be going into the pen blank box, the subscription, the club. So I've already poured all the blanks actually for the pen blank club, and so just so everybody knows. for the Pen Blank Club folks, you'll be getting the Chat Mix blank. So one of these guys, as well as one of the Bespoke. And if you don't do Bespoke pens, then you'll get a whole lot of regular pens. Now, these are transparent, so you're gonna have to, deal with that. I would actually probably, if you're gonna make a kit pen with a, with a tube, I would probably go full paint the inside of the blank on these, because there's definitely gonna be areas that are like transparent, like totally see-through. So the interesting thing though, you can use that in your favor. So I was saying it totally changes the look of the blank, and that's not always a bad thing. If you paint the inside of the blank though, so this area that's clear, whatever color you paint that, it's gonna kind of almost look like it's the resin color. It kind of takes that on. Now it's gonna be like deeper below, if you had some little glitter particles up kind of near the edge of the finished pen, those are gonna be obvious. It's gonna give you more like a three-dimensional look, but it is going to kind of make it, so what I'm saying basically is, think about what color, you would want that to look. It's not just going to be like a white or black, which is what we a lot of times use. If you're just trying to kind of cover up like thin areas of mica or something like that. White and black generally work the best for covering tubes. Black is going to darken it, and it'll like absorb light. And so for darker colors, a lot of times that works pretty well. White is going to reflect light more. So if light is going through your mica powder, the white will reflect it and brighten up your pen, basically. But in this case, you can go any color, basically, and add a different color to the mix of your blank. But it will look kind of almost like you're adding, like instead of the clear parts, you added like, green if you pick that or something like that. So, be a little bit aware of what color you pick, but I would definitely do that if you're going to go kit pens on these. We'll see what they look like if you're making a Bespoke pen though. Chad's in the house. What's up? Oh, by the way, guys, we got a couple of announcements, and actually Chad just reminded me of something. So I decided to do a flash sale on some blanks. This is the 4th of July, so hopefully everybody had a good 4th of July yesterday and you're having a great weekend. Relaxing, celebrating, barbecuing, hanging out with friends, whatever, getting in the shop. What I decided was, well, let's do a flash sale. So we're doing on the Cubbies and the Independence blanks. They're my red, white, and blues, like the Team Color series. Those are both on sale, 20% off this weekend only. So I think the sale ends, I want to say Monday at midnight, probably. Just use the code. What is the code? I got to think about the code. So I'm gonna put a couple links here in the chat window. So that's the Cubbies. If I was really on top of my game, I would have got the link that automatically applies the discount. But whatever. It's Flash 20. Flash 20 is the discount code, so you can enter that code during checkout and you get 20% off. And I want to say I'm at the point now where this whole pigment thing was to convert my Team Color blanks, right? That was the initial reason that I got into pigments and all this kind of stuff. What I'm trying to do is get rid of the square blanks and replace them basically with vertically poured round blanks. And at this point, I have all the colors to replace like all the dye recipes completely mixed up. I got everything ready. I don't have inventory, and I'm not going to make thousands of blanks to replace inventory, basically. What I'm going to do is I'm going to basically phase out the square ones as they, as inventory goes away, basically. So be looking over the next few months. This is going to take a while because I got quite a few of the square ones still. The Dodger blanks have already been converted, so they're round now. But I'm going to be heavily discounting blanks. I'm probably going to do like a blank a week, and I mean, we're talking like probably like 20-25% off kind of thing. So be looking, make sure you're on the email newsletter, because it's going to be every week there's going to be discounts on these things. But so this weekend, the red, white, and blues are 20% off. I thought that'd be kind of fun for 4th of July. And those are, obviously the Cubbies blanks, those work for like a whole host of teams if you're doing a team color thing. I mean, obviously the Cubs, the New York Giants, it's pretty close for those. and a whole lot of other ones. And then the Independence blanks, it's a darker blue. So you're looking at more like, actually, I think the Washington Nationals, I think it would work for them pretty well. The University of Arizona Wildcats, and anything that's like a kind of a darker, it's not like navy blue really, but it's like darker blue, and a little bit darker red and white. So it's a little bit more like the flag, you know, where like a true flag, it's a little bit darker blue than like, you know, Cubs blue. So anyway, those are 20% off. And then the other big thing is the Color Lab pigments. The launch sale is ending this week. Okay, guys. So if you want 20% off and you want to try out the Color Lab pigments, here's the link to that. And then the discount code for that is Color Lab. So 20% off any of those types of things. So lots of sales. And then I also wanted to mention the reason that Chad came up on this. Turner's Warehouse has the Color Lab pigments in stock and on their website now. They're not doing any 20% offs right now, but down the road, if you want to buy from Turner's Warehouse, you're already buying stuff and you want to throw in a pigment, they got them now. So pretty cool stuff. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll up and make sure I didn't miss anything. The OG green, I know, I love this. The only thing is it's got resin stains and stuff on it, but I was like, I want to wear the green one. I like the green one. I love it. Yeah, Roman Color Lab didn't. Actually, I'm about to post, he already made blanks and it was pretty cool. I didn't even think of this. He put 4 of the 5 colors together. He did like a brick pour. And mixed 4 of the 5 colors, and those blanks turned out pretty awesome. I don't know why I didn't even think about just throwing all the colors together and making some blanks. We'll have to do that down the road, but they look pretty good. I was like, oh, you know what? Can we? They're a little bit different colors. You know, you got some kind of darker and lighter ones, but they looked really good together. I forget which 4 he put together, but I'll post a picture of that. I need to get it off my computer and onto other stuff. So. Anyway, I think that's about it for like announcements and things. One other like kind of side announcement for anybody that still wants to get one of the Gatling molds. I really don't want to. I'm probably going to kind of phase these out for the most part, but I have a bunch of silicone, and I don't want it to go to waste basically, because I'm switching. A lot of the team color blanks, I'm going to be using the Beast. You can get 12 blanks out of that thing. So to be honest, the P-Town Stubby molds are cheaper and they work just fine. My issue, the reason I made my own is I wanted a specific length, which looking back, whatever. It hasn't served my purpose very well. But for anybody that does want these, they are more expensive, but I am going to have some in inventory because I'm making a few. I have one right now. It's not on my website, but I think I had on my website that they're like made to order. That's not the way it works. It's going to be once they're in inventory, they're available. So there will be some if you do want that round silicone 7 blank thing, and they are a little taller. They're like a 6-inch deep tube. So not the coral. That's right. Oh yeah, because watermelon and coral are fairly similar kind of shades. So. Anyway, all the announcements out of the way. Let's head over to the lathe. That's not the lathe. Let's go to the lathe. Let's check it out. Oh, I got to get my phone so I can see the chat. Yeah, so we watched, we barbecued some burgers yesterday. That was pretty awesome. And then we watched the Dodger game, and that was not awesome. They got just blown away. It was like 20-1 or some terribleness. All right, so I think we'll start with the body blank. Let's see here. So I label these things. I try to, you know, cut them and like put a lot of notes on here because I already have once drilled like the wrong side. Now in this case, I don't really know that lining these all up, and I don't know. I don't think it's going to make any difference really in looks, but you know, this is how I cut it. So I'm gonna those don't actually line up, but I think it kind of goes like that or something or like that. But anyway, so this is, I like to put, you know, okay, the cap's going on this side, so I got to drill on this side. It just helps me to stay sane kind of thing, you know. Oh, come on, get in the hole. Jeez. Whew. All right, I don't know if that's gonna fit. Sometimes you get a little bit of junk. I don't know if you guys can see down in there, but there might be a little bit of junk in there. All right, so let's make sure I'm putting it in right. Ooh, oh, there we go. Oh, it's pretty tight. All right, so we got that thing loaded. We're gonna start with the body. I don't even know if that's really the way that I usually do it, but I haven't made one of these for a while, so I don't think it really matters which way you go. So first thing we're gonna do here is go get my phone so I can see the chat. And I've got for anybody that wants to get into bespoke pen making, and we're gonna make a fountain pen because I still haven't gotten up the nerve to mess around trying to make a rollerball nib, whatever thing. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. Haven't done that yet. I like the fountain pens anyway. I think it's kind of unique. All right, so we got some drink. I got to open up the YouTube app and see what's going on here. Hopefully it'll, nope, it didn't do it again. Huh. My channel, go to my channel. There it is. Make sure the volume's down so I'm not listening to that. And let's see here. Oh, exciting. Ooh. Oh yeah, I think I know what that actually is. I forgot about that. Let's see here. Stupid question, but what is with numbers next to some people's name? Yeah, I don't know what that is either. I got to be honest. I'm not sure. I'm not seeing it actually on my phone, but I did see that on my computer, and I got to be honest, I don't know what that is. Oh, you did a funnel. Sweet. Marquetta's here too. Let's see here. Hold on a minute. Let me. Blowout made me jump. Blowout. Okay, so let's square this up first. Let's get it a little bit square so that we're not cutting it sideways. I haven't done this for a long time, guys. I got to be honest. We'll just kind of get it going. I'm not even going to turn the, I'm going to turn the thing on. I just don't really like dust, you know. And actually, before I even start this, I had to kind of adjust my tool rest. I'm going to make sure that I'm square and centered. Okay, pretty good. The glass is adjusted so I can see. It's a little bit low. All right, we are square now. It's hip to be square. Top fan list. Oh man, that's fun. Kid Cooper's in the house. What's up? How's it going, man? Let's see. Oh. All right, people, you're getting tracked, folks. They're just making it apparent now. Pretty sure we were always getting tracked. Let me get my little list of steps out because I'm pretty sure that that's probably the best idea. Okay, square face, center drill. I was on auto mode. I need a new center drill. I've been center drilling a lot of things, and this center drill just doesn't feel like it's cutting very easily. All right, 6mm. So, one thing I also want to share, I found, and I don't know offhand, I'd have to look this up a little bit, but I found on McMaster Car, they've got the spiral flute, what is it, parabolic flute drill bits, which they clear chips a lot faster, like realistically. So this is a 27/64. I do a lot of drilling, you know, on test blanks and things that are Sierra type, or, you know, Wall Street and all that, Majestic or whatever. These work really well at clearing chips. And like, frankly, I can pretty much drill all the way in almost on a normal pen blank. So I wanted to mention that they're relatively cheap and they're not super long. Like some of the Fish brand ones are like really long, and I don't know. They just seem like they can move and bend. These are pretty decent. I've been pretty happy with it. It started out a little bit funky, but once it kind of just slightly dulled a little bit, because it was kind of tracking and doing some weird stuff. I don't know if that was something weird with my tailstock or what, but ever since that first drilling that I did, this thing's been working well. Now, I'm about to drill, the reason I'm bringing this up, I'm about to drill a 6mm hole, and that is for so I can use the what is that thing called, the tenon cutter, you know, to facilitate this thing. And I will say 6mm with a normal drill bit, that takes forever. So I would highly recommend, if you do a lot of these bespoke pens, find a 6mm spiral flute. This is a Gehring brand, but I gotta be honest, they're super expensive and they're like impossible to find. Fish sells one. My only issue is like the shank is super tiny and it's pretty long, but Fish sells one. It's still not cheap, but it works way better than a normal drill bit for this type of thing. And the only issue is, so McMaster Car had them, but the problem is there's not enough flute to drill all the way the 3 inches. Now, my thing with that though is I don't know that you really need 3 inches of this thing in your blank just to center that. Like maybe there are scenarios, but I think you could just cut some of this off and these cheaper ones would work just as fine. So it's up to you. I haven't done that yet, obviously, yet myself. I have a bit that works fine, but it does, I find it is significantly better to use one of these spiral bits for this step especially. But they do work better on, you know, drilling whatever out anyway. Now we need to do a little bit of, this is definitely a case where we're going to want the lubrication. We want to keep that thing running smooth. So I'm going to back it out. We're going to spray some in there. But you definitely get a really smooth cut with these spiral fluted drill bits also. So if you can find one and have the funds, I definitely think it's worth it. Now you can use that tenon cutter without the centering mandrel thing. It's going to be a little bit tenuous though. You got to be kind of careful. It's an easier way to really kind of get a blowout, but it's doable. I'd rather have that stability, but you can get around it. And in some cases you may need to actually do that because you can't drill a hole in the blank. Now I probably could drill all the way in with this bit. Like I was saying, obviously I'm not doing that. What I'm trying to do is keep that inside. I guess technically in this case, I'm gonna drill most of this out anyway, so I don't know if this matters, but kind of nice to keep a nice I need to mark this thing. Where's the 3-inch mark? Because I'm probably going to cut most of this away, so I don't know that I need to be so careful, but whatever. So we're looking at like somewhere around like there. Okay, I just want to make sure I know how far I got to drill in here. Pretty much there. I'm just going to go just a little bit deeper. Ain't going to hurt anything. Okay, so we got that. Let's see, is there any questions, comments? Translucent resin. Yeah, the parabolics, Vinny, they really work better in most cases. Grill is fired up. Nice. All right, so I was just checking to see. Yeah, sometimes they can move a little bit. That's the center drill, though, really kind of helps that, because once you got it centered, it should kind of stay good. All right, so now we're going with the tenon cutter. I'm probably going to be pretty slow today, guys. It's been a while since I've done one of these guys. All right, so hopefully I didn't mess any of that up. All right, tenon cutter 0.21. Actually, before I do that, what I'm going to do is mark my tenon here. And I've been kind of short on that. I think I'm going to move that up to 0.25 on this one. So what I'm making are the cap threads. And generally, I like it pretty short. You really don't need a lot of threads there, but I think I'm going to move it up just a hair to 0.25, quarter inch. It's kind of a nice round number. Ooh, right on the dot. Look at that. That is accurate. Let's do a quarter inch. I want to see how that looks. Hopefully that won't like screw up some other dimension that I've got, because I kind of had everything like perfect. All right. See if I can get you guys in on the action more, so you can kind of see this thing cutting. It's kind of cool. And I got to plug my camera in as well. There we go. Nice. Actually, I think I'm gonna have to move this, because it's like right in the way of where I stand. So let's scoot you guys over on this side. Let's see. Oh, that's pretty good. Get in even closer here. Bumping everything. There we go. That's a good view, huh? Okay. I like to get going about my RPM meter's not working. There we go. I like to get it up to around 1200. Just get a pretty smooth cut there. Now I like to go pretty slow when I'm beginning. And I'm going to turn on the dust collector real quick. I'm going to stop real quick and see if there's any. Jim. Oh, ends up in Oregon. Oh, you moved to Oregon. Wow. Congratulations. Oh, Jim has had issue with translucent resin. See the line? Yeah, I mean, you have some issues. I got to be honest, I don't know enough. I haven't even made enough translucent pens to really even comment on that. If Chad's still in the chat, he would know more. Kim's asking what's in the spray bottle. That's just WD-40. I found that to be the easiest. I tried cutting fluid. I used to use mineral oil, which they all work fine. WD-40 just, it works. It also cleans my lathe bed, keeps water off of it. So I just kind of went with that. Let's see, did I miss any other questions? Other questions? Oh, good, Harold. Yeah, the air pressure thing. I mean, there's no other, as far as I know, there's really no other way to do it. So I like to get a good hold of my, and I'm not putting pressure. You don't want to, one thing you don't want to do is like be pushing anywhere, but I want to get a good hold of this so it doesn't spin or do anything, but without trying to pull down or, try and keep it neutral. And then I actually grab, I don't even use like the knob on my hand wheel. I grab the whole hand wheel and just inch it, like just barely come in when I'm first cutting. Just to make sure that it doesn't grab or do anything funny. You can get just a nice slight start, and then once it's engaged, you're generally good. But that initial cut, sometimes it can kind of grab on you. I think I'm doing the wrong thing here. You got to put the right bushing in there. So luckily I caught that before we went too far. Told you guys I haven't done this for a while. So we got to put the right tenon cutter thing in. Right? It's the, yeah. Whew, that was close. Okay, we got to square this up a little bit real quick. I was like, that doesn't look right. Something's wrong here. I'm going to end up just drilling that out probably, but I'm going to get rid of it just so it doesn't bug me. Okay, let's do this again. Whew. It's getting hectic out here, guys. It's getting hectic. Okay, so where did my tenon cutter thing go? All right, where did the... I'm all messed up today, guys. What's going on here? All right, so I'm going to do a 14 millimeter. Where'd my little tool go here? All right, so I'm just going to get that lined up. Okay. Back on track. Let's try this again. I think I still have enough depth. I think I'm still good here. All right. I got to redo my 1/4 inch. Luckily, I don't have to redo my calipers. Okay. All right, now we're ready. Okay. David's asking, do I use an ultrasonic cleaner? I do. Okay, I didn't miss anything. So 1200. All right, let's try this again. So I'm just going to ease in. That looks more like a body tenon. Let's see what's happening in there. Sneak up on there. All right, that's about 1/4 inch. Turn off the dust collector, chamfer and sand the tenon. I'm telling you guys, it's so much nicer if you got the cheat sheet going. I would pretty much mess up every single one of these if I didn't have a cheat sheet. All right, so I'm going to chamfer the edge there. That's just a quickie. And then I'm going to do a little sanding. This is even more important on something that's pretty transparent. And you know, we were talking about that. You know, I haven't seen even from like the you know, the people that's all they do is they make these bespoke fountain pens. I really haven't seen anybody come up with a really fabulous way to deal with some of those transition parts, you know. You're going to see a little line. And I mean, frankly, even if you bought a, you know, from one of the companies, like they're, you know, the mass-produced manufacturers that are using like the acrylics and stuff, I mean, you're still going to see a transition line there. It's just, I don't know that there's any way to really fix that. All right, so we'll do a little sanding. I'm going to get I usually pull out a little bit of 600, and in this case, I think I'm probably just going to go up to the gray. Whoa. I think I will just put this down real quick here. And so is Marquetta still there? Yeah, Marquetta's here. So I forgot to, yes, I kept forgetting to email you. I did wash it in the Lathe Buddy in the washing machine, and everything came out great. The only thing, and I think you already mentioned this, it did fray, you know, a little. I mean, not anywhere past the seam. There is a little bit of a few strands here and there. It doesn't bother me. It's fine. But I think you've already fixed that on the newer ones, if I remember correctly, or like addressed it or something. So that was the only thing that was like that happened at all. But like I said, it doesn't even matter. Just get a scissor out and trim it up, and I'm good to go. But it cleaned up real nice. So I'm just using a little bit of 600 grit here. I'm going to slow that down. I don't need to be going 1200. I don't want to do too much sanding because I don't want to take off a bunch of material. You know, we tenon cut it to be a pretty perfect tenon. So if you got like hog wild with your 600 grit here, you're going to make a smaller tenon. So just a little bit, that's all you need. And I'm going to step up and just kind of go through these grits here. Stiffer backed paper is actually a little bit easier to deal with on something like that because you can kind of get it in there better. But this just helps with the threads, so they look nice and shiny. Probably polish it if you wanted to, all the way up. I don't know, does anybody actually go through the whole polishing on their pens? On the threads? Yeah, I thought you did. Fix that fraying thing. Like I said, it's not even a big deal though. Yeah, it cleaned up real good. It's already gotten dirty since, but it came out sparkling. And what I did, I don't know if this even matters or makes any difference. I folded it and, like, you know, connected the magnets. It's still kind of stuck to the drum a little bit, but that way I figured it's the, you know, I don't really need to wash the bottom part so much. So I don't know if that matters, if that's the way to do it or not. Honestly though, you know, you can run it in the machine, but like, I think it would take you 2 seconds to just clean it in like if you had, you know, like in the sink. I think that's plenty, honestly. That would do the job. All right, so what's the next step here? Cut the threads. Yeah, see, I had a note, 14 millimeter die. Didn't follow that though. Oh, that's the die. Actually, I didn't get to that step. Where's my die? I can turn the lathe off. We don't need to do that anymore. Is that my 14 millimeter? Can't read it. There it is. Yeah, 14. Okay. So now we'll pull out the other game-changing device. What is this thing called? The Neil's niche thing. And again, you guys can get all of this equipment that you need, and everything that you need to make bespoke pens is at Turner's Warehouse. They've got it all. Which, you know, it's funny because, you know, today, I don't know, I don't think that that's like a big deal to people, right? That's been available pretty much at Turner's Warehouse for years now. But the thing is, I mean, when people started getting into doing this type of stuff, like in their garage, where it wasn't just like a corporation with a bunch of machines and stuff, you know, doing these by hand, I would say probably 5 years ago, I mean, you couldn't find the tools. You couldn't even get the taps and dies. So it's a big deal, actually, to say they got everything you need now. You know, it's not as impressive today because it's been around for a little while, but that wasn't a thing that people said not too long ago, really. You never made a bespoke pen, haven't turned a pen. Oh, you got to get on this. Get in the shop and turn a pen. Oh, turning other items, okay. For the threaded tenon, you do 1,000 wet and then walrus, no scratch. What's walrus? I've never heard of that. That's cool. Tell me more about this walrus. Walrus, no. Oh, no scratch pad. What is that? Tell me what that is. I haven't heard of that. I love these gadgets. The tenon, I'm telling you guys, the tenon cutter changed the game. Like, I was like, when I had to cut the tenons by hand, and you know, I'll be definitely the first to admit, I am a hack on the lathe, all right? And if something's gonna take me 3 hours, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if that's worth it. And so the tenons, it would take me forever to get it, and then I'd mess it up because the tool would be sideways or something. And when I heard about that tenon cutter thing, that was the difference. That's when I got into pens, when those things were available, you know, making bespoke pens, because I just didn't. And I mean, part of the thing is, if all I did was, like, if my game was I'm in the shop turning pens, that would probably have been a different story. That's not what I do. I do resin casting. And so when I'm turning a pen or something, it needs to be quick, because I'm not going to spend time honing my skills on that. I hone my skills resin casting, you know. I want to learn those skills first. And so when that thing came out, I was like, yes, give me a perfect tenon every time. It's not cheap, and and you can do it by hand. So it's not like you have to buy the tenon cutter off the bat. If you want to get into them. So that is the nice thing, but it is such a time saver. So, you know, if you're just doing it as a hobby and you want to save time, that's perfect for you. If you're trying to sell pens, I would highly recommend just investing in that tendon cutter right off the bat, because it's going to save you a lot of time. You don't have to think. I like things that I don't have to think about it, you know. Oh, that it might be. I don't know. I might have double cut that. I hope not. It seemed like it worked pretty well, but I need a little toothbrush. Where's my little toothbrush? I had a toothbrush. No, this will work. Get that fuzz off of there. And it's always good to have a pen or something. I actually need to make some of these things because I don't think I have one now. But it's good to have just something pre-made that is pretty much meant to just be like a sample thing to test test your joints out, or your threads and all that kind of stuff. I've got a pen that I don't really care so much about, so it's not a big deal. You can use anything, but I just want to make sure that that's looking good, and it is. But yeah, I kind of want to have some dedicated just parts. It takes 2 seconds, use a blank that you don't like. All right, so now we're going to drill I use some kind of, I would maybe say slightly unconventional drill bit sizes, and do things kind of a little bit my own way in some cases. So for the next drill bit for the converter, I just use a T-bit, and I like, you can do stepped operations and all that kind of stuff. I believe this is one of those things that I was just like, how about I just drill one hole and move on with my life? So a T-bit works perfect. So the letter T is a good size to hold the converter and all this stuff. So I just do that, like I said, just one operation and move on. You can step it and do all kinds of stuff like that if you want. I don't see the point, really. But you have to get like a lettered bit. Now you can order, if you go on Amazon or wherever, you can probably just find a single bit, but it's the letter T. I don't know if that'll come up on the T as in Tom. I don't know if you can see that, but works good. All right, and then I need to go 3 inches on that one. Yeah, 3 inches deep, and I have a mark. I'm just going to double check that mark is correct really quick. Maybe. Where's my ruler? Yeah. I really need to like etch that in somehow. All right. Now this is the one where we definitely want, and it'd be nice if I could get a spiral bit for this one or something, but it's really not necessary for most of the operations. I find that 6 millimeter is just a pain if you're using a standard drill bit. You can only go in like, maybe half an inch, and then you got to clear the chips out. So the spiral on that one, or the parabolic flute, it just, to me, I wouldn't even mess around with it. I pretty much immediately went in searching for a 6 millimeter parabolic. Like the first time I did it, it was just terrible. Yeah. So David's asking, do they carry? Yeah, they got the Neil's niche thing that holds the taps and dies. They got the tenon cutter. They got all the drills and taps. And they even have, they got the collet chucks, if you need a collet chuck, Turner's Warehouse has I would go with the stainless bottle stoppers one. This one's excellent. And they have that, and they've got collets, they've got, what else do you need? Drill bits. Oh, and they got the mandrels as well. So when we start turning these, they've got all the mandrels, so you don't have to mess around with that. So, I don't know what else you even need. They got nibs as well. They got every single item that you need to get this done. Get it done. Oh, is Chad out? Oh, we got to run. Oh, man. All right, guys. Lathe speed when drilling. Usually around 900. Somewhere in that neighborhood, 8 to 750 to 1,000, something like that. You can kind of tell, like you'll know, it may take a little bit of, you know, experimenting, but you'll kind of know when things are not right. But the other thing that you know, so everybody always wants to know what the speed is, right, of the lathe, the thing spinning. The other factor also that plays a part in this, it's actually, if you get into the machining, and I'm not an expert at this, I don't want to claim it, and if anybody knows more than me and can explain it better, please do. But as far as I understand, you've got how fast is the drill bit going, moving, and how fast is the thing spinning. And this, it's the same thing as, you know, if you're just spinning something on the lathe and cutting, you know, with a tool. Either way, it's called a feed rate. And so you also, you know, you don't want to just slam the drill bit in if it's going 900. That's not going to work. And you'll kind of know, you'll get a sense of like, that doesn't sound right kind of thing. If it's too fast or too slow or your feed rate is a little bit off. But I always like ease in at the beginning. I let it kind of think about what it's done until it, and you'll kind of feel it, you know, ease up, and then you can kind of start going. Now it is making some weird noises here, but that's kind of normal. Like I said, once you've done enough of these, you'll kind of know like, okay, something's wrong with the speed or the feed rate, you know, me putting the drill bit in. Or you'll also kind of get a feel for like, I need to back this thing out because it's starting to bog down, you know, with chips. And it doesn't take that long. Like, you know, you do a few of these things and you'll kind of know like, oh, I think I need to back off a little bit, or hey, maybe I need to speed up the lathe. But it's kind of the same thing, you know, a lot of, I think the easiest turning idea is the bigger the drill bit, the lower the speed needs to be. All right, so if you're like drilling out, like you're doing a box or something like that, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna hog out a bunch of material, like I'm not gonna be spinning this thing at 900 most likely with a 1.5 inch bit, like Forstner bit, right? And even like center drilling and like something very small, like even that 6 millimeter, like you can definitely increase. Like I could probably get away with, and it would be actually more correct to go up to like 1,000 with a very thin drill bit. So you can kind of vary these things, but in general, like 900 works for like everything. If you just want kind of an easy answer, I don't really change things a whole lot from, you know, I don't vary it. Like these slight differences, when you get up to like a 1.5 inch Forstner bit, you're going to have to slow it down, but they're just taking off way too much material at once at that point. But with a normal drill bit, I mean, up to probably like an inch, like you could probably, 900 is probably fine at almost any speed or any diameter, up to maybe not an inch, but like 1/2 inch, let's say. That's more something that you would actually get to. It's always good to clear the chips. I even like to kind of try and blow out the inside just to get any debris out, especially if you've got transparent. Because if you got a bunch of junk in there, that can, it could cause you a little bit more time sanding, like because it can put some marks and stuff in there that you don't really want. So that's why it's good to use a lubricant when drilling. For the most part, if you've got like a totally opaque pen, you know, or blank, I mean, really, you can totally get away with not using a lubricant when drilling. You could if you wanted. I don't really recommend it, but because I think you're just going to get better results. You're going to probably extend the life of your drill bit a little bit, possibly. You're trying to cut down heat, right? And that's like the enemy of any edge, whether it be your bowl gouge or a drill bit. So the more you can do that, the better off you are. But technically you could get away without doing it. It's not going to really ruin anything. If you're doing like an aluminum blank or something like that, but with the plastic, it's not that big of a deal. But when it's transparent, I think you're going to just save yourself a lot of time if you can just take it easy, add a little bit of lubricant. And I always shut the lathe off. I've had, and I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but I've had too many times where I just keep it running and I push the tailstock back up and like it grabs, like the drill bit grabs before I've gotten the tailstock locked down. So I just shut it off every time because I don't like ruining blanks. It hasn't hurt me or done anything. It's just pretty much, you know, that drill hole goes too deep sometimes, and I don't know. I mean, is that weird? Or one of the things that happens with my tailstock is that it kind of like the mechanism, the hand wheel part loosens up a little bit, so my whole quill can move a little bit, and I think that has something to do with this issue. But it doesn't work for me. I don't know. Maybe somebody has something on there. I've seen some use a 7mm bit to drill. Yeah, I think 7 mil. It's about the same. So let me look on my thing. Oh no, not 9mm is what I think you're thinking. 9mm is a little bit thinner. I've had it be just a tad bit tight with a 9, but that is what most people use. I've just had a few things where it's just kind of clunky, and I like the T. I think part of it, I think you may have to do a 9 and then a T or something like that. I don't know. I think it's 9mm though. They're very close. I honestly couldn't even tell you why. I'm sure I could take measurements and do all that stuff with a caliper. At this point though, I've kind of forgotten why I did that. Why I went with the T. I just know it works, so that's what I go with. But I do believe it's 9mm, what kind of standard. But I think a lot of people still do like a stepped thing. Okay, so that seems fairly clean. Sorry guys, I'm moving pretty slow today. I don't know. It's been a while since I made one of these things, and so I'm going to chamfer the inside of the hole now with this little chamfering tool. This is one, I don't know if Turner's Warehouse has this thing. I think they've got other styles, maybe not that specific one. Any of them will do. You could just use a tool and come in there, you know, chamfer it that way, you know, with the lathe spinning. Okay, so we chamfered the inside. Now we got to cut the threads with a 10x1 tap. 10x1. But you know, overall, even though like I'm a little bit, I don't know what the deal is. I'm needing to like really kind of think more through this today. But for the most part, the whole process, I know I've talked to people that are kind of intimidated by this, and it's really not that hard. You know, yes, is your first pen that you make going to be amazing? Probably not. You know, is it going to be a complete throwaway? Maybe. Still probably not. But you know, but I think once you do like one, and I truly believe this, because it really, once you just kind of see the process once, I think you'll be like, oh, okay, it's just a bunch of steps of simple things. You know, like drilling is not hard. None of these things, you know, even the tapping and all that stuff, all these operations are pretty simple. I think that most people's issue is you maybe haven't done it before. But once you've done it like once, you're like, oh, there's nothing to that. You know, it's not that big of a deal. And so, you know, if doing bespoke pens, if you're interested in doing it, you know, definitely don't be intimidated by any of these steps because they're very simple. The only thing is you just need to have a list of steps. And so, you know, there are plenty of videos out there. You can just write down what I'm doing right here. I'm going to give my tailstock just a little bit of juice. I'm gonna take this thing out, and I'm just gonna, oh, a little too far there, a little too far. Okay. Yeah, don't be intimidated. Give it a try. And again, so out of all the tools that you need, the expensive ones are gonna be, you know, like if you bought this Neil's Niche thing, this isn't cheap, but you don't have to have it. It's just if you're gonna do a lot of these, I think it's definitely worth the investment for sure. But you don't need it. You could just kind of, you know, load up. I think before I bought that, I would just load up the tap in, you know, I would put the drill chuck in my tailstock and just put the tap in there. And then, is that how I did it? I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think so. And I think I just twisted this thing. You got to leave your tailstock loose. But that's, you know, there's ways to tap things and keep everything straight without using, you know, an expensive tool that's made for one thing. Obviously the tenon cutter is pretty expensive. That's going to be a high one. You don't have to have one for sure. You can cut a tenon by hand. It's more tedious, you know, and this can just kind of repeatedly do the same thing over and over again. So to me, I think it's worth it if you're serious about getting into these things. I would buy it off the bat if you're pretty sure that you're going to make a few of these pens, but you don't need to just try it out, right? You can make your own tenon. The triple start taps and dies, those are extremely expensive, and you don't need triple start taps and dies. You can literally go to Home Depot and get whatever tap and die set you want, and they're cheap, and put whatever size threads on there. You don't need to have any specific size necessarily. So you can get just the single start. The only problem, you know, like the only drawback to that is it's just going to take, if you're turning the cap on, it's going to be more rotations to put the cap on. That's it. But there's actually a benefit to a single start. You can get it lined up perfectly every single time you take the cap on and put it, you know, take it off and then put it back on. You're always going to be lined up with your cap and your body because it only has one position, right? With the triples, there's three positions that it could end up in because there's three different starting points on the threads. So there's actually a lot of people actually just use the singles. And the body and cap, you know, thread, that's the cap threads. That's the only area that you're going to use that. Other than that, we're talking drill bits and stuff, you know. I mean, there's really not much to doing this. You know, if you don't have, I guess the other thing is you need a collet chuck. You could use a four-jaw chuck, I guess, actually. The collet's a lot more accurate, but you know, the list of things that you like need, you know, and I'm, you know, quotes, actually need, is not that long, or expensive really. All right, so I'll just get that thing lined up, and I've got a little mark to tell me how far I need to go. Should be good. Now on this one, what I'm going to do, yeah, that's right. Okay. On this one, what I'm going to do is double check my mandrel threads to make sure if this thing works, then, you know, like a section would work for sure. The thing is, what can give you a false result is if you got a bunch, which I almost guarantee, I've got a bunch of junk jammed in the bottom of that thing. It doesn't seem like it. Air blowing doesn't get it all out. So just to let you know. So I've got this little thing. Try and make sure that I'm getting, may not actually be. Usually there's like a little bit of junk at the bottom. And what happens is if you got a bunch of chips at the bottom of the hole, this thing is not going to go all the way down. All right, so we'll just make sure we're not cross-threading. And this is going to do two things. It'll tell you that your threads are good, but it's also going to, and long enough, but it's also going to tell you that you got that drill hole deep enough. Because if this thing stops like right here, not all the way in, then you got problems. You got to either, first thing to check is if there's debris down in the bottom, because that happens a lot. But that's looking good. And there's all these little double checks that you can do, right? You really, there's not too many times where you're like, I don't know if this is actually going to work in the end. And you, and you get to the end of the whole project and it's like, oh, that didn't work. I messed that up or something. Like, you'll know along the way. And I find the process to be very enjoyable. I definitely, I prefer this process. It takes more time, and that's why I don't do more of them. But if I had to pick like one type of pen to make, I would do these. Like if somebody forced me, because I really just enjoy, you know, putting all the mechanical parts on the things, and I get to use the entire blank that I make, and that's important to me because I make the blanks, you know. It's a pretty cool process. All right, so we got a body done, guys. Look at that. We got a body. Ah, it's stuck in there though. Get out of there. All right, so we got our cap threads on, we got our section threads, and we got everything drilled out. So we basically just set this guy aside. I'm going to move on to the cap now. And again, I've got marks on my blank so I don't screw this up. It wouldn't be the end of the world in this specific case, this blank, but you know, if you've got like a pattern that extends, then you want to make sure that you're drilling in the right, you know, drill in the right side. Let's say chip load. Yeah, chip load sucks. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll. I'm missing some stuff. I'm kind of, it requires me to focus a lot more than just turning like a Sierra that I've turned, you know, 3 billion of. I got to kind of think about what I'm doing a little bit more. And then when I talk, then it screws me up even worse. All right, so the first thing we need to do is square this guy up. Let's see here. Nightmare Ninja, that's a pretty, yeah, that's a cool screen name. I like that. Welcome to the stream. Darren, anxious, I know, and I was too. And I don't want to be like the guy that's like, you know, come on, just do it, it's fine. And I'm sitting here, I've turned, you know, I haven't turned that many, but like hundreds, probably, 100 pens, hundreds, couple hundred, I don't know. You know, I've done a few, so, and I got all the tools and everything's easy. But I was exactly the same way, right? I was like, I don't know. And there was way less, there was like no information out there when I first did one of these things. Like, I can't even remember. I think I had to read steps on a forum. I don't think there was a video. Maybe there was one. I can't remember for sure, but I was like, I don't know. But that's why I want to reassure you that, you know, I think that you do it the first time and just kind of see each one of these steps, like how does this, you know, how does this kind of work? I mean, maybe 2 pens, but I mean, like after your 5th pen, you're going to feel pretty, you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to make another one of these pens. They're fun. It's not going to even be a thing at that point. So I'm glad somebody else kind of, you know, kind of attested to that, you know. Yeah, they're very rewarding. They're fun. All right, so probably only going to get these things, these two. Let's see, what time is it? Well, I might be able to get everything milled today, including the section as well. All right, square, center. This one's the easiest. The cap's by far the easiest part to do all the milling for. All right, so first things first, we're gonna crank it up. I'm gonna square the end and then center drill it. And the center drill thing is very important. You really want to get that drill hole started. What it's doing is it's going to minimize like the wandering and all that kind of stuff. It makes the drilling process you're starting off on the right foot, let's say. If you don't do that, you can have like the drill bit kind of moving around and doing stuff, and it's just gonna, it seems like a kind of a trivial thing, but it's kind of an important step. To the point where, I mean, I even center drill when I'm just doing a kit pen at this point. Because it does help, you know, it's providing a benefit. It's letting those drill bits start on the right foot and keep going that way. All right, so we got that. We're gonna need to drill. Let's see, I think I changed some stuff on this. Let's see, drill. No, I still do. One thing you probably could get away with. It's better to step this one. I think I've gone back and forth on the not doing a stepped operation on this one, and I always come to my senses. So we need a 25/64. That's gonna keep. You could do like I think some people do like a 3. Like I said, I kind of minimize some of the operations. I think if you're going for like the most fancy pen on the planet, and you're like, you know, your objective is to sell these things at a pen show and stuff, you know, little things add up to quality. I don't have any plans to do that really. If somebody wants to buy one, fine. But you know, it'll function great, but it's not going to have every little minor detail done. I've saved some time with steps on some things, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but you could kind of keep stepping things. I think there's like one more step operation that you could do with this. The problem that I had with it is I think that what you would do is you would step down even further to a smaller diameter as the first drill. Well, I guess you could do it in reverse too, but it's the deepest one. And if you start with that thinner, you know, we already talked about the 6mm. If you start going with like thinner and thinner drill bits, they're harder to, takes longer to drill all the way through. And if that's the longest one to go through all the material, I'm like, I don't need to do that. All right, so 25/64. We're gonna go about 2. What do I? Man, so the problem is my notes are just kind of stupid right now. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. 2 point. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna double check this mark. Yeah, so I can come in a little bit on that. That's interesting. I wonder why I didn't change that. Maybe, hold on a minute. Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, so I could do. Sorry, I had to I got all these notes going on, and I had to read some stuff. Figure out what I'm doing. Helps you if you have really good notes. So that if you step away for a while or haven't, it's not so much that, I mean, I did one of the camo blanks not too long ago. I haven't thought about this at all for a while, and I think that's what's screwing me up. I've been so focused on the pigment thing and all that, that I'm just like, I don't know. Kind of escaped my brain for a minute. Or maybe because I've been learning all these new skills, trying to figure out pigment bottling and whatever, it overrided or overwrit the bespoke part of my brain. I don't know. Let's see. What are you guys saying here? I always start with an extra large blank. Let's see. I'm not sure what you mean by extra large. You mean like the 8.5 inch long or whatever, like the bespoke length blank? Yeah, Jim mentioned, Jim had told me about the step. I looked into that, and I got to be honest, I'm not as I don't know if that's going to help me out a lot personally. It could. I'm just not. That's one that I'm not really willing to spend the money on. I got a pretty good process, and so it works fine. Let's see. Let's see, Randy. Oh no, you're fine. You're fine, Randy. No, not always. I mean, frankly, I don't have. Like my camo pen. I don't even make bespoke length camo blanks. So this is made up of two different, pen blanks basically. But in this case, like it's camo. Like it's not like there's some pattern necessarily that I need to adhere to or that's going to work out. I mean, it could. It could. There are swirls and stuff, but it's just not gonna. It's camouflaged. You can't see the pattern. So in that case, no. You don't need to. Or let's say that you wanted to do like a, the cap one color, and so no, you don't have to. The advantage is that you've got like a one unified kind of color and pattern. Typically. But you don't have to. And with my team color blanks, although I am converting them to be more bespoke friendly, I'm not going to be pouring these things in an 8.5 inch length. They're all liquid pigment, and I just have a feeling, I haven't done a lot of testing or anything like that, but I just think that I'm going to get more color bleed if I start doing that. It's just, so I'd rather just do these shorter ones, because like the vertical drop when you're pouring, like the bottom of the blank, I think is going to be prone to more bleeding if I did a long blank. And so in these cases, again, it's just going to be two, shorter blanks. So you don't have to. It's just that a lot of people would kind of like prefer. It's like a preference thing, because that way the whole blank is the whole pen, the same blank and all that. All right, so I'm just going to bring this little. So again, what are you guys looking at? You guys seeing good? Okay. Turn on the dust collector here, and then, like I said, I got my mark. And I ease it in to begin. Then you can kind of go. And I'm not like going really fast, but. I think the way to tell that you're feeding too fast is it's going to really be like, sound like it's like, grinding, like you're it's, instead of like kind of slicing, it's more like a grabby sound kind of thing. And sometimes it just sounds like that, but it's going to feel, and it's not going to feel good even when you're drilling. If you're going in too fast, I think, and too slow, it's also too slow. You don't want to go super slow, because you want that feed rate to match the spin rate. I don't really need this dust collector on. The chips are falling. They're wet and falling to the ground anyway. So I'm going to turn it off. I don't want it. It's kind of nice to have a little brush. I finally found my little brush. You just kind of wipe things off. I still like to blow out the blank though. It kind of causes a mess, and one thing that I'm not 100% sure of is like atomizing WD-40 and like kind of breathing it. Probably isn't great for you. I don't know. But if you like the smell of WD-40 in the morning, just blow it out. I'll do one more pass. I almost just went for it, but I think one more, I can kind of sneak up on it. Make it nice. And in fact, before I do that, I'm gonna just do that. You could probably just use like a tool of some sort, like that brush or something. Try and get some of the chips out of the inside. I haven't come up with a stupendous way of doing that other than just blowing it out. So that should be enough. And again, I like to do dummy tests and just double check. Where you could run into problems on this step is your mandrel. All right, so if you didn't drill long enough on your mandrel, there's two problems. Your nib length, nib section, and like the threads for the, for the body, they need to fit. And I've already done all those measurements, so my measurements should be pretty good. But one area where you could run into an issue, that is the longest drill bit, drilling operation that I'm going to do. So I can double check this. And like you could use calipers if you wanted, but you can also just kind of, like stick something down if it fits. Stick something in there and just make sure that, you're good. And I've got about 1/4 inch or so extra. There might be some chips jammed at the bottom of this thing already. Maybe not. But it's always good. That way you can kind of, take some sanity. I like to call them sanity checks. Just make sure that you've got the dimensions correct and everything's working out right before you, even before you like take it off. Because if I take this out of the chuck and then put it back in, it may not be concentric anymore, running true. So you really, as much as possible, you really want to get all your operations completely done before you're flipping the, before you're removing the blank from the chuck. You can't do that with the section, you have to flip it, but you're always better off getting as much as possible done before you dismount something out of a chuck or however it's being held. Because it's hard to get it back in there and running exactly the same as it was initially. All right, now the next step is going to be what is this, 33/64? That's a weird one. 33/64 drill bit. And that's just going to go, this is mainly to take care of the, yeah, okay. Sorry, reading. I got like things crossed out and weird things on my notes. And this is mainly for the threads, but it's also for the mandrel as well, to make sure that it's got room. Where's my WD-40? Get a little bit of WD in there. Get some on the drill bit, and then here we go. Let's see, is there any questions here? Oh yeah, square blanks. I guess again, you could maybe use like a 4-jaw chuck, but typically people are going to have to knock the corners off first, and then then you start your operations. And that's the reason, that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to switch the resins that I'm using for the team color blanks. There's a lot of reasons really, but that's one of them where I have a feeling that people are kind of like, I have never made a bespoke pen out of one of my square blanks because I just don't want to deal with it. That's something that if you've got a metal lathe, that helps to just deal with that, get it rounded, and you got that operation done. I don't want to deal with it. Because really, you really do, and the reason why the metal lathe is better is because you're guaranteed to have a straight line. Like, I have issues getting a dead, square or whatever parallel line for something that needs to be held in a chuck. And if it's really kind of wonky, the chuck's not going to hold it that well. These things work for me in my head. I don't know if it's really that big of a deal for bespoke pen makers or not. But I think if you don't have a metal lathe, I don't think you're really going to want to mess with it too much if you can avoid it, Some blanks, there's no way to get around it. You have to make them square because you can't cast them in a round vertical tube. But, with with the team color blanks, I can pour them vertically. I just need to switch the resin I'm using. Okay, so we got our drilling done. I'm going to chamfer that hole. Then we just need to tap the threads in there. We're ready to go. And we'll move on to the section. So like I said, next week, we won't get these things turned this week. Typically, I usually just do the milling on one. Oh, whoops. See, that's what I didn't want to do, is take the thing out and then... Oh, well. It'll be okay, I think. That was I took the wrong component out. I wanted to take the drill chuck out. And let's see here. Got there it is, my tap. But I still need to chamfer. It's always good to chamfer those things. That way the tap has, what it's doing, it's kind of like the center drill in a sense, where it's giving the tap an easier path. If you got like this super harsh square edge, the tap can have issues kind of centering in on there. It just kind of helps it start, let's say. Now, what else do I need to do? I also need to, do the relief cut. In fact, so I put a relief cut in my cap rather than on the threads of the body. Okay, so some people, no matter what, you need to have a relief. You can't just have threads that are running into a wall like this. It's not gonna work very well. The threads are gonna bind at the end. So one way to deal with it is on the body, you have to cut a little bit of a relief, which looks like, I also do that on the other place that you're gonna have to do that is on the section. But with the section, you don't see that. So I don't really care where I put the relief. And so in this case, hopefully you guys can see, I can't see my screen. My camera's upside down. There's a little bit of a relief where there's no threads. Probably about like an 1/8 inch, maybe something like that. And I just cut that out. That way it doesn't bind up against the edge when you're screwing this thing in. So that's one way you could do it. You could put it on the body, but you're gonna see that, and I don't like the looks of that personally. So what I do is instead I cut a little bit of a relief on the cap. You can cut it on the opposite side. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I like to cut the relief. You could do it, you could do tap the threads first. And I may have to go back and re-tap anyway, but if you tap the threads first, then cut a relief, you're probably gonna have to rerun the tap, just run it. Sometimes I have to run it again anyway, but you're basically cutting the threads that you just cut away. And so the start of those threads may be a little bit kind of funky. So I'm gonna actually just cut that relief first. And then when I tap it, it's tapping into that already cut relief. Now, the way that I do it, you could use like could use a detail tool here, but the problem is this thing, this back, which frankly, I don't know. I almost want to just grind this thing because this is just in the way. But you can't really get it flat without bumping this bottom of the tool into the thing. So you'd have to like angle your cutter a little bit to get on, and you know, either way. I usually do it, put the lathe in reverse, but if your lathe doesn't have reverse, you'd be doing it on this side. But you're gonna have to angle your tool using that. I've got a skew, and is pretty much the only thing I use a skew for is this type of operation, because I don't like skews for other things. But I can come in, and like I said, I'm gonna be turning the lathe in reverse, and that way I don't have to come backwards. Stand on the opposite side or get in a weird position. I can just stand normal. And I'm just gonna give it a little bit of an angle, just like I said, just a little relief. And this can be a little tricky. How much do you cut off? And it's something that you can't really test right away. So it's kind of a little bit tougher way of doing it compared to just cutting that relief on the body. But like I said, that is one area where I just don't like the looks of those things. It bugs me a little bit. And I don't know that like customers, if you're trying to sell, I don't know that they care so much necessarily or not, but I don't like it. I know it's there and I don't like it, so I just do this. I gotta turn it on reverse. And so one thing I'm gonna do, I gotta crank up the light so I can actually see what I'm doing here. And you don't have to go in like super far or anything like that. Just a little bit. Okay, so hopefully that was enough. I think that was. In the past, I've not taken enough, and then I got to come back and mess with it and all this. So I think I did pretty good on that one. Whoa, almost knocked over my WD. I'm gonna spray that a little bit. All right, so let's see if there's any questions. David's got a question. Let's see, Randy had some questions too. Oh, in quantity, yeah. There are people that sell them. Turner's Warehouse carries some bespoke length blanks. I don't know how many you need, I guess, is maybe, you know, like when you say quantity, how many are you talking about? But yeah, Turner's Warehouse, I've got some, and I mean, I can make as many as you need pretty much. I don't keep a huge inventory because I don't like move a ton of them. But if anybody ever needed, like, you know, obviously more than I have in stock, then I just make them. We just do a custom order, but you just have to contact me. I can make whatever quantity pretty much that you want. Turner's Warehouse has them. A really good bespoke blank maker is Jonathan Brooks. He's with Carolina Pen Company. So that he's got excellent blanks. Sometimes he's a little hard. He makes pens. That's really his main thing. And so the problem with him is he doesn't have things in inventory that often. Sometimes that at least in the past, I haven't really like kept up on him lately. So he could be maybe hit or miss on that. But there's also TPC, TCP blanks. I'd have to go into my Instagram. I can't think of all the folks that make them right off the top of my, oh shoot, that thing's not, I gotta lock this thing in. Thinking about blank makers. But there's people out there. Who else? There's, man, I am just blank on blank makers. Blank on blank makers. Right off the top of my head right now. But there are quite a few. Definitely go on Instagram and search that out. You'll find lots of people making blanks. Okay, so that's looking good. Now this doesn't really need to go too far, but it is going to be a little longer because I put a little bit, just a tiny bit longer thread on my body this time. I just wanted to kind of see what that length looks like. Now there's two things with the depth of how far this one goes. Again, obviously this is the cap thread, so the body, it needs, this needs to fit in there. So let's give this a test real quick. And that looks pretty good. It's almost even lined up. I think this might maybe go there. Which we do have 3 starting points to try. That one's off for sure. In this blank, I'm not sure that, that's pretty close too. I don't know that the outside of the blank, the way that this, like the glitter and all this stuff is sitting, I don't know if it matters, honestly. Because when you start turning this down, I think it's not going to matter what it really looks like. But anyway, so the body of the, that fits, and that's fine. And the other thing to do is, you always want to test these, especially your 2 components, the actual 2 components out. I want to make sure that there's no weird binding and that this, closes correctly. Another thing you could do is turn the lathe on and see how concentric is this, how true is it running. Really, does it matter? No, but that's looking pretty darn good, which means that I did all of my operations pretty well, because it's not wobbling at all, which is great. That's more of a pat yourself on the back thing. Really, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it matters that much. Now, the other thing, though, that you do need to test is your mandrel on this again, to make sure that you've got enough threads for the mandrel as well. And in this case, I don't know if I do. I really wish this mandrel had less threads, honestly. The other thing I'm checking is to see if there's any junk. The drill bit is so big that you usually don't get a bunch of junk at the bottom of this. In this case, I did kind of change a couple things, so I'm going to actually measure this. My depth in here. Just because I'm a little bit curious. Sometimes you make a change and it affects everything. No, that's fine. Okay. So I need more threads, basically. One thing that I kind of want to do is actually just take off some of these threads. You can just chuck this thing up in your, like if you buy a mandrel and you kind of want to change things, like I could literally step this if I wanted. I could cut some of it off. But in this case, I actually want less threads because I don't need as many threads, I don't think, as are on this thing. But yeah, it just starts binding up before it actually finishes. So... but you could actually just chuck this up in your collet chuck and actually, you can make changes to your mandrels as long as they're like brass, aluminum, bronze even probably. Steel, no, you're not going to be using your carbide tools, hand tools and changing those ones. But if they're brass is super soft, aluminum's turnable. Any of those types of materials, or plastic, obviously. There are plastic, like Delrin mandrels out there. Some people just make their own, even out of that stuff. And frankly, you could make your own out of, brass and any of those materials too. So I'm just going to do a little bit more with the tap to make sure, to see if that's enough. The one thing is, if you're going to put a relief cut on the cap, then your threads actually start in further on the cap, okay? So this is something that you really need to think about when you're planning out your all the dimensions of the pen. This is like the hard part, let's say. This, I would say, would be the hardest part about getting into bespoke pen making is, especially if you make changes to something, it will affect things. So my cap is actually going to be sitting further down on the body now because I put a relief cut in this cap. The threads don't start for like maybe, let's say like a 16th, a 32nd in. So it's effectively changed where this is going to sit, which means that your nib is going to be deeper into your cap now. And so like that's where things get a little bit confusing and complicated, is like the way things, how long all these little parts are, and how many threads and all that kind of stuff. That's where you really just need to double check and make sure that you've got enough length for all the parts. I'm good because I know that this works, that's where if you're, it's good. That's why I just decided, I went through probably 2 or 3 pens, made a couple different things. Well, actually I'd say like 10, did a couple different types of things, and then kind of landed on some numbers that I like. And I know that they're going to work every time. So just wanted to kind of, that I would say is one of the harder parts. So I took a little bit more off. This fits in perfectly now. And we are done with the cap. So that's exciting. I think Turner's Warehouse might have a cheat sheet on like sizes and stuff. I think I might have put mine somewhere at some point too. Let's see, what time is it? 1:45. Yeah, I think we can get this section done too. All right, so I need to square up both ends of my section here. And I'm making this take like way longer than it really needs to. Once you get going with this stuff, I mean, you can knock these milling steps out, especially if you're not talking and messing around the whole time. You can knock out all this stuff very quick. Once you get kind of proficient, you're like in the mode, done a few of them. All right, so let's put all this stuff back. Pull that off. All right, let's see if there's any. Oh yeah, sorry guys, you were talking about making blanks. Sorry, I didn't continue. So yeah, you can make your own blanks. Yeah, PVC pipes work fine. The one thing I will say about PVC pipes though, they're 13/16 diameter. They're not a 3/4 inch. So if you don't have a 13/16 collet, it ain't gonna work. So that's why I actually like using the silicone molds. They're 3/4. Some people, there's advantages to having a 13/16 blank though. You get a wider diameter, which means you can make I think you could probably still get a 15 millimeter like thread body section thing out of a 3/4, but you're going to be a lot better off if you're trying to make the really fat pens. You may even need to go to 7/8 at that point, depending. I think some people are making like 16s and bigger. And when I say that, that's the like the body, like the cap thread diameter. So on a pen, you can't make the body any thinner than these threads, right? So when I say like this is a 14 millimeter, which I find it's still a pretty big pen, but it's not overly big. But there are people that are making probably like 17, 18. And at that point, you can't use a 3/4, what's 17 millimeters, I think might be bigger than, well, 3/4 inch is how much? 3/4 is it's like 19 millimeters. So about 19 millimeters is 3/4 inch anyway. So if you wanted to make an 18 millimeter pen, you're going to have a 1 millimeter thick, diameter. So you gotta, you only have like a millimeter to like shape the thing or so. And realistically, that's just not even actually feasible. So 13/16 is good. You just got to make sure you have the collet is the point. All right, so what am I doing? I wanted to see here. Let's see, hold on a minute. Yeah, the round ones are pretty easy. That's what I mostly do on this, on the streams when we make them. David's got a question. So if you don't have a long blank, can you still make a bespoke pen out of a... Yeah, because these are only, my cap is only like 4 inches or so, and they don't even have to be even that long necessarily. I think my body is about 4 inches, and my cap's about 3 to start. And that's like, you could probably shave a little bit off those lengths.
Shut up and take my money.
And still get a pen made. Because you can technically make a pen out of an 8-inch blank, which, like I said, if I got a body that's 4 and a cap that's 3, then you got a section also, right? So that whatever's left over from that is your section. Well, I mean, there's going to be some material taken off with the, when you cut them. So you're down to a pretty small section at that point. So, you can make that a little bit, shave off a little bit from the 3-inch and the 4-inch on the body and the cap, but an 8-inch blank will work. But if you've got 2 6-inch blanks, then you can do whatever you want, If you got 2 5-inch blanks, if you got 2 4-inch blanks, you could still eke out one. But if you... Oh, Jim's going to make pen blanks. Let's see here. Yeah, square. I don't like square. Why don't I use my chamfer tool? Chamfer tool? You mean like this thing? That wouldn't take off enough. I mean, I'd have to sit there forever. It's easier just to take the... the other thing you could do is also you can kind of make it like more of like a square step rather than like a chamfer. I kind of chamfered it a little bit on that one, but you could kind of come in and just and kind of make it more like a square notch almost. So you could do different things, but you could do whichever one you want. Yeah. So the minimum length, it depends on what the minimum length for each component is. But you can piece together all kinds of different things as long as, it's like, I would say about 3 or 4 inches, somewhere in that realm. If you want it to be made out of one blank, but you can just piece together as many blanks as you want and make a pen out of it. Let's see here. Yeah, 8 inches is pretty, I don't love that. But you can eke it out. I mean, like I said, 3, 4, and 1 or so. And you got yourself a pen. That'll be fine. Let's see, the section didn't work out. Yeah. 608. Well, in kit pens, there's nothing superior about bespoke pens. I like the types of work that you're doing, that's all. They're just different, but I love a good kit pen too. I mean, really, one of my favorites, actually, we just made this one not too long ago. They're so great. And frankly, like, I don't use fountain pens a lot. You can make a rollerball bespoke, but, the kit pens are great. I love them too. I think that there's definitely, there's room for everything, but these are fun. They're a little bit different, Makes me think a little bit more, obviously, because I'm kind of going slow here. Oh, thanks for the super chat, David. Appreciate it. Oh yeah, if you're set up to do resin casting, just get yourself, either PVC pipes or get around mold. you know, for round blanks. Turner's Warehouse has the P-Town subby ones. They work great. And they've got 8.5 inch, or like they've got the 8.5 inch tall. I'm gonna switch cameras real quick since I'll show you what's kind of available for the most part. So P-Town subby, that's Fred Wisson. He sells a lot of molds. He's got tons of all kinds of different ones. But if you're talking about vertical, so he sells, there's an 8.5 inch tall. Now the problem is with his tall ones, and you were kind of talking about it, you're really kind of netting, it's 8.5 inches exactly to the top of this mold. And even if you overflow a little bit, like kind of leave a little bit extra on the top, like really fill it to the brim and then kind of overfill it, you're not going to get an 8.5 inch blank. There's air trapped in that resin when you pour it, and when you pressurize it and as it cures, it's going to drop a little bit. So it's going to be somewhere between, and this is why most bespoke blank makers, they're going to sell you a blank that's between 8 and 8.5 inches, because most of them are using this, and you're not going to get 8.5 out of this thing. So just be aware of that. They also sell a 12 inch. Fred has a 12 inch, and I don't know if that's a 7/8. This is a 3/4 inch diameter. I want to look. I'm not sure what they're 12. I think they're 3/4 still. Casting molds. Vertical. And Turner's Warehouse carries the P-Town subby, these ones. Yeah, 3/4 by 12, 4 blank. So if that's like a big deal, they also have a 7/8 by 12. Just to let you know. But they've also got these 6 blank molds that are 5 1/4. They've got 7/8 that are 6 inches deep. And obviously I got all these, I like them. They've got a 12 blank mold that's 5 3/8 deep, but 3/4. This is what I'm using for my team color blanks now. I will be selling a few of these. I don't really like making them, and they're very much more expensive than the P-Town ones, just because there's so much silicone in this thing. But these are 6 inches deep. Is that 6? Because I wanted to make 5.5 inch blanks. That really kind of blew up in my face. I don't really like, at this point I wish I would not have done that. But the 5 1/4, the problem is 5 1/4 inch tall blanks fit in a small flat rate box. And I didn't think about that when I was making these things. And I don't really think that there's a big advantage to having a 5.5 versus a 5 1/4 inch blank. So the team color blanks, yeah, that's about 6 inches. So mine are 6 inches deep. You get 7 blanks out of that. I'm going to sell a couple more. I'm just going to try and get rid of my silicone. But they're way more expensive than the P-Town subby ones. So I mean, honestly, unless you really need 6 inches and 7 blanks, I don't recommend buying mine. They're just more expensive. But so there's lots of options. And then, PVC pipes work great. Turner's Warehouse sells the pipes, and you can get some clear pipes, and they also sell the plugs that go in them. So that's awesome. And they got like all kinds of different sizes of PVC pipes and plugs and all that kind of stuff, depending on what you want to do. And there's also a few other mold makers out there. I'm not sure if she's back in action yet. Let me go and look. So Nikki over at Olive Frog, she's still on a break. Olive Frog Designs, she's on Etsy. She makes some really excellent silicone molds as well, but she's on she's on maternity leave from her store right now. And I think there's one other person maybe selling silicone molds for pen blanks, but I can't think of who that might be. Let me look up. Hobble Creek Craftsman. I don't know if if Mark over at Hobble Creek is selling molds or just making his own. It doesn't look like so he's a pen blank mate. He makes awesome blanks. I can't believe I didn't think of that. Yeah, so Hobble Creek Craftsman. Look up Mark over at Hobble Creek. He's got excellent blanks as well. I don't think he's selling molds. I think he's just making his own molds, maybe. Or maybe somebody's making them and putting his logo on them for him. Yeah, so Hobble Creek, if you're looking for blanks. Another one, I want to look, hold on guys, I want to look up a couple people because there's some really amazing, oh, actually, one blank maker is, hold on a minute. Yeah. Oh yes, Starry Night Resins. Starry Night Resins. Excellent blanks, excellent blanks. Who else is out there? There's a couple that make some really killer blanks that I've just never seen anybody. Ooh, somebody made, huh. Somebody turned one of my, who is Woodchuck Hobbies? Oh, Darren. I didn't recognize your Instagram. Darren just made one of the robin egg and golden. I'm like, wow, that looks like one of my blanks. And then I read, and it was. That was the first thing that popped up. So there's also, oh, come on. Let me look for somebody that makes really cool looking blanks is, let me just search, I guess. Why can't I search? Get out of my way. Poorly Controlled. Lisa Marie. Kevin Zog makes blanks. So there's a lot of bespoke blank makers out there. If you're looking for them, I would, like I said, I highly recommend get on Instagram and like search for like bespoke blanks. There's tons of people, and then once you follow like me and, you know, Hobble Creek and, you know, all these, once you follow a few of them, then your Instagram's going to show you everybody else on the planet that's making them. There's tons. So let's see here. We'll get back to the lathe in a second here. I just wanted to check it out. You still won't bow to YouTube? Oh man, I paid premium. It was the best move ever. But so the reason that I did it, I would be like watching mine and doing comments, and like there was a thing, because I'm a creator, I would have to be on YouTube, and I'm like, I'm done with these ads. I cannot handle this, because I like had to do it, but it was to like get my stuff up there. What was the deal with that? I forget exactly why, but it interrupted like me posting videos, and I'm like, I'm done. I can't handle this. Yeah, Jim Hines demoed at Turner's Warehouse open house, and honestly, I don't know. Are we looking for like? I'm not sure if the question was. If there was a question about doing bespoke, just go to the Turner's TV channel. Chad's got an excellent. He did his own. He's got a whole video series. So if you want to, Jim did one and he went through it in like kind of all one session, like during a demo. But the only problem, and Jim did a great job with that, but the problem with that is trying to get camera angles and all that stuff during a live demo was a little bit difficult. So they redid all the bespoke things with Chad going through them, and he's got everything, including like how to do a clip, how to do, I'm pretty sure he did I'm pretty sure he's done if you want to do not a fountain pen, but a roll, like a roller ball, like section nib thing. because I haven't actually even done one of those yet. This is one of those, so we were talking about it, right? I haven't done a bespoke rollerball because I'm like, oh, I don't know, it seems like it's really hard, right? Like that's in my brain even. I'm like, I don't want to do it. So, you know, time for me. But yeah, so he's got a whole series. So go to Turner's TV. I'll get a link to their Turner's TV YouTube. Look at it real quick here. And actually subscribe to their channel because they do lives every Wednesday, and they do they got all kinds of stuff. So make sure to follow them. And that's where you get all your stuff anyway. Yeah, I know it's not that hard, I'm sure, but it's like I don't know how to do it, and I don't have. The problem is it's for me. It really is like I don't have time right now to mess with it. It's gonna take like a weekend, and I don't have a weekend to give, you know, right now. Eventually I'll get on it because, you know, a lot of people don't really want to mess around with fountain pens. They would much rather, like if I'm going to give it to them, they don't have ink and all that, and they don't want to mess with it. So we're back over there. Okay, so let's go back over here and let's do our section here. So first step, I gotta get this thing. And the sections, it can be the hardest, I would say is the most finicky part of the process. But they're really not that hard. We just make it seem like it's much harder than it actually is. The turning of the section can be, oh, it's going in reverse. That's where things can get a little bit out of hand, but there's ways to mitigate the possibility of blowing it up. And to be honest, I've never blown up a section, ever. And I mean, people always talk about, oh, the section's hard. I've never, okay, granted, I haven't turned like 1,000 of these pens, but even still, you can still look at it the other way, is that I haven't turned that many, right? So usually people with less experience tend to get blowouts or, you know, have problems. I really don't think that there's easy ways to mitigate the problem with a section, and it just has to do with supporting it properly on both ends. People just kind of chuck it up and then turn it, hanging off of a mandrel, and you get vibration. And it doesn't take much to blow it up at that point. But if you support it from both ends, you don't blow up your blank. It's amazing. Still got a little nubbin in there. That's good enough. All right, so we got our section. Let's see. I don't know if this one matters which direction is which. I'm going to look at this and think for 2 seconds about what the implications might be. So looking at this blank, there's a little bit of glitter on this side. So I think if there's going to be more glitter on one end, I would actually want that to be out towards like where the nib is, rather than on the other end of this blank is going to be threads. So it's going to be hidden inside the blank. So I think that's what I would want to do, is have the glittery stuff. Because this looks, and I don't know what's on the, well, okay, so there's glitter possibly on the inside of that. Anyway, I don't know. I'm going to make this my threads. So we're going to mount this with the nib side in the collet, which that's where the glitter is. Okay. Nib side in collet. We're going to center drill this guy. Oh, mark section. That's what I need to do though, before I do this. Before I move on. And I may do this a little differently than other people. Okay, so before I begin, I need to know what my length is going to be on this guy. So let's just double check, make sure I got this thing zeroed. Okay. So I've got a 1 1/4 or so blank, which actually that's going to be even longer than I need. I only need about a 0.8 or so. I'm going to just double check some of my numbers. I've kind of gone to a pretty short section. 1 inch plus, yeah, that's 0.9 plus a 1/4 thread. So it's about there. This is 126. So I'm actually going to take a little bit off of this thing. I need 0.9 plus 2.25. 1.15 is what I want for my full length. So I'm actually going to take a little bit of material off of this thing completely. But I need about a 1/4 from there, so 0.85. Let me look at what that is. Sorry, I'm just doing a little bit of mental calculations here. About a 1/4 inch, that seems like more. Yeah, that's more. .9. Okay. All right. So I'm going to mark this up really quickly here. Let's get this thing out of the way so I can get this in there. I needed to figure out where I need to mark it because it's easier to mark from this side. And I can cut off the excess later. Just need to get in there and mark that. Now I want to flip it. Actually, I don't need to flip it. It's in the right orientation already, but I am going to put it in a little bit further. I needed to know where my threads went. Hold on a minute. Yeah, so this does need to kind of come out a little bit. Okay. Like I said, this one has the most steps and can be the most finicky, I would say, a little bit, but again, it's not really that hard. You just need to have your steps in order. We're going to center drill first. And we're going to be working on where this, the threads for this thing to go into the body first. So we got the center drill. Now we're going to do a 6mm all the way through. And again, this one really doesn't matter. I don't necessarily need to worry about heat even with this. I'm going to turn the dust collector on. Let's see here. Oh, so many blank makers. Well, I don't think most of those people, so I know Hobble Creek, he's producing a massive amount of blanks, but I think most of us are just making, some amount, and hoping that they sell. All right, so 6mm, that's to facilitate the tenon cutter, a little kind of post. So we got that 6mm tenon cutter. Now I need to switch this back to a 10mm offset. I made that mistake the first time. started cutting and I was cutting a 10mm where I needed a 14. So we're going to readjust this guy And that's what I love about this. It's so simple to make adjustments, and it'll work. It comes with all the bushings for, you know, like your 10 millimeter, which is what most people are using for their, you know, for the section threads. And then, but it also, I think it comes with, I'm pretty sure, 9 millimeter all the way up to 15. Is there a 9 in there? Maybe there's no 9. I thought there was. 10, 11. Definitely 10 to 15. There might be a 9 in there too, I don't know. If there was, I lost it, I guess. Maybe it's just 10 to 15. All right, and then we've got, so that was the mark that I made. I need to know what my tenon's looking like. And frankly, so yeah, I'll cut that excess off after I put the tenon on. This is a little longer than I really need. I like to have about a 1/4 inch tenon on the section, and then about a 0.9 or so, somewhere around an inch, 0.85 to 0.9. Actual, you know, threaded part. Okay, so now you guys can see, I think. Oh yeah, Cocoon blanks, duh. Cocoon makes great blanks. They got a lot of square blanks though, I will say that. But I'm pretty sure I think they do Bespoke too. Oh, they have written instructions from the Higgins pen. That's cool. Let's see. Can't drill the body like it says unless you have Jim's body mandrel. Oh. Oh, there is a 9 in your... Yeah, I thought there was a 9. I must have lost 9. Huh. I might have an older one, though. That might be something that's new. Possibly. I don't know. It's kind of weird, though, that I don't have it. Seems like something I would have demanded from Chad. Let's see if maybe I have it hidden in this drawer somewhere. Yeah, so because that's pretty standard, especially if you're going to go for like a 10 millimeter, you know, or like I don't know if people make a 10 millimeter pen, but like 11 or 12, I think you kind of need to drop down to that 9 millimeter size, possibly. I don't know. Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, I want to. How do you set the tenon cutter for the correct? So you must not have seen. I'll show you in a minute. There's basically these little bushing things. There's these little bushings that go on that bar, and then you just adjust. You just unscrew this thing, which this whole bracket kind of moves, and you just set your cutter along there. I'll show you after I'm done. It's super simple. Takes 2 seconds, and they got all the different bushings that you need for the different. So like that 14 is going to give me a 14 millimeter tenon. It just takes out the thinking part of it. Oh, yours doesn't? Yeah. I don't know. I must talk to Chad about that. You're like, where's my 9 millimeter, dude? You promised me 9 millimeters. All right, so let's come in here. Like I said, I ease in, and then once it's kind of bit, let's say, then you can kind of go a little bit faster. I'm running about 1,200 RPMs. Oh, don't go too aggressive. It'll want to grab on you. So I'll show you a little demonstration of changing, because next time I do this, I'm going to want the 10 millimeter first, probably anyway. So I'll show you. So make sure you're watching. All right, so like I said, this one's the 10. And the one thing, and I don't know if they've changed this, but I had to like write on these. I told Chad it'd be great if you just stamped these somehow. I don't know if that's happening, or if it is going to happen, or if it's already happening. But it is good to mark these things just so you know which one's which. All right, so what you want to do is you want to get this cutter. You don't want it to be like angled weird. I don't know if you can see that, but there's it's like angled off of the thing. You want it to be running parallel. You know, there is room for this thing to kind of move a little bit. But make sure that thing's parallel to this bushing, this thing. Make sure the cutter's like that. And I like to get the cutter away from this block. Give it room. And then once I'm satisfied that everything's in the position, you just tighten this down. You don't even need to crank it down or do anything crazy. But it's always good to double check and make sure there's no gaps of light so that this thing is exactly, you know, parallel with the bushing. Might even be a little bit kind of tight. I'm gonna back it off. You don't need to like jam it down onto that thing. You just want to make sure that it's nice and square to the bushing. But you don't need to be like white knuckling the cutter into the bushing. Just make sure it's parallel. And you can even kind of have a little bit of, you know, movement there. Let me just double check. Hold it against the light source. Looking good. Okay, so we got our 10 in now. One thing that I want to do really quickly though, this is too long. I don't need that length. Oh God, I almost did something terrible. Yeah, that's plenty long. Okay, so I need a Sharpie real quick here. Where did my Sharpie go? I lost my Sharpie. Oh, there it is. That's okay. So I only want this to be 1/4 inch. So I'm actually going to cut off the excess right now because I don't need it. And again, all these like measurements and numbers and all these things, like you make it your own. You know, I mean, there's obviously kind of standards that are probably pretty good no matter what's going on, but you know, over time, especially if you kind of follow some of the bespoke pen makers that are out there, they're kind of, some of them at least, some people are really kind of like pushing the boundaries. They're, you know, like once you get used to how the whole thing works, you can kind of play around with, okay, well, here's the standard. What if we kind of tweaked this? You know, or tried doing it this way. So there's a lot of interesting things you can do with these bespoke pens. Kind of hard to see that line, but I think I know where it is, yeah. And while leaving that a little longer wouldn't hurt anything, it's just going to make you have to turn this thing more times to tighten it into the thing. So 1/4 inch is plenty. It's strong enough, but you're not sitting there turning it forever. Let's see here. Okay, so we got the tenon cutter. I'm going to do a little bit of sanding on the threads real quickly. This one's a little bit, in my mind at least, a little less important than the body one, because you really don't see this a whole lot too often, too much, you know. Probably don't really pay attention to it either, but you know, we want quality wherever we can get it, as long as it doesn't take too much of my time. I'm much more concerned about the function. You know, if there's something where, okay, it's going to take me some more time, but it's going to make the pen work better, that's one thing, right? For me, personally. If it's just something that looks a little bit better and it's going to take me forever to do, I'm a little less inclined to worry about things like that. It also kind of depends on like how much better is it going to look. You know, I have like a weight system. Okay, no utility. It's going to take me 10 hours to do, and it barely makes the pen look any better. Don't think I'm doing that one. All right, so we got that ready. Now we want to... Now, this is an interesting thing that you want to do. You want to put your... We're going to be cutting threads on this thing, okay? I can maybe zoom in a little bit. Let me get behind the camera and see what this looks like. So we're going to be cutting threads on the tenon. And the thing is, we got a hole in the middle of this thing. And so this is where, like, you know, because I was using the tenon cutter, this is one area where it almost is kind of a drawback. But what's happening is the meat on this tenon, because there's a hole in the middle of it, is prone to, it's just not that strong, right? And so it kind of helps to put your drill bit, that, you know, your 6mm drill bit or something that's 6 millimeters. You could even use the little mandrel thing from the tenon cutter. It's a little, I think it's a little bit thinner technically than the drill bit, so your drill bit's the best option. But you want to put something in there just to provide a little bit of extra support when you're cutting the threads. I don't think it's a big deal, like you're going to break things or do whatever, but it can move a little bit, which could kind of mess with your threads a little bit. It's probably not going to be that noticeable, but again, this is one of those things that all I got to do is shove the drill bit in there and it's better. So it's easy, takes no time, and it actually functionally can be helpful in this case. So always do that on this step, is my recommendation. And even with the drill bit hanging out, you still, it'll fit over, you know, this thing will fit still. Okay. So let's do this. Let's turn this thing. Okay, so we're looking okay. By the way, yeah, Cocoon makes great blanks. Can't believe I didn't think of them. I just wasn't really thinking, like I said. My mind blanked. Okay, so what am I doing here? WD-40. Get a little, and technically, before I do that, I forgot to chamfer, which I'm going to have to take the drill bit out to do. I want to chamfer that edge just to give it, again, just so that the tap starts easier. You don't have to, like I probably took way too much off on that. You just need a little bit of a chamfer. Doesn't have to be crazy. So we got that. Let's put our drill bit back in. Give it a little bit of that. Give it a little bit of that. And then this is a case, so I don't know if you guys noticed, I didn't mention this before, but when you're using these dies, technically the first cut, you want the die to be in the holder with the words, if there's letters on it, they need to be up on the first cut, okay? Which means, like in this case, this is the first cut that I'm making. And then what you do, especially when I'm going up against a wall here, a shoulder. So then you would actually flip it. Now I find I don't need to run. So the reason that the lettering, you want it oriented that way is because it's actually slightly chamfered or whatever to start a little bit easier on the lettered side. This side is like the back side, so it's like fully straight. On this operation, I find I really don't need to be flipping it and doing that, but every single time on the body threads, I have to. So I don't know what that means, but I can get away with just starting this on the back side every time, and I'm fine on this one. It's a single start. And so I don't know exactly why that may be the case, but just know that in general, the lettered side is going to be the starting side, and then you want to flip it around actually so that you can kind of finish. Because what's happening is you're not actually cutting, you're not getting a full cut if you don't turn the thing around. The threads are like tapered, and so like the back end of your threads that you're cutting, if you didn't do the flip around thing so that the tapered side's facing down, the lettered side is facing down in your holder, you wouldn't get, your threads would not be correct, basically. And so you want to make sure that you're getting, all the way to the shoulder. Oh, I went probably a little too far on that. All the way to the shoulder and get good threads all the way down. And then again, this is where I'm going to come in and put a little relief cut in there. Otherwise, when I screwed that thing in, it would bind on the body and not work. So again, on this one, I don't really care. I don't hide it anywhere because you really just don't see this that much. I'm not that worried about it. So in this case, I've got a 16th inch parting tool, and that's what I use. You could just use, I think it's a little harder to use something like this, but you can get in there like this. I just find that I tend to mess the shoulder up and stuff if I'm using one of these tools. Do you need to go out and buy a 16th inch parting tool? No, but I had one. You could even make something out of just like if you have an old file, you could grind it down to a 16th inch or something really thin and just jam that in there. I mean, you probably don't even need to heat treat it really, because all you're doing is literally just taking like the tiniest little cut. You're only going in probably like a 16th inch in. But once again, this is where I'm going to take my body and test this out and make sure that it works. There's no binding or anything weird going on. Sometimes I need to take another cut. I don't get enough. I like to leave as much material on as I can get away with without it binding up or doing something weird. Yeah, it's a little tight on the end. A little bit tight, but that also may just be the threads, possibly. Let me try this one more time. I think I could take a little bit more in. I can take it just a little bit more off, but I like to try to keep as much as possible on there. Like, don't go so deep. What is happening here? There we go. Just because I don't like the looks of that thing. Okay, that ought to be good. I'm so confident I'm putting the tool away. Yep, I did it. It's still a little bit tight on the end. I'm gonna run I haven't taken my die. Oh, there's the WD-40 again. I haven't taken my die apart, and I like to leave it set up just so I can run it one more time. Make sure that those threads are good all the way down. Let me look at this thing. Yeah, I could probably take more off. This is one of those areas where I'm a little finicky about. But it is a little bit tight in here. Even just when I kind of get to the end of this, sometimes you might need to run your taps and dies through like one more time just to kind of clean things up. Another thing, and some people may be screaming at me, before you start doing threads, like if you had junk in the threads like that, you know, constantly testing things, you know, on all these parts can kind of mess that up. I haven't found that to be a big deal, but technically it would be better to make sure that they're totally clean before you test things out, but I don't want to take it off the lathe, you know. That, to me, that seems less worth it. Okay, I think that ought to be good. Plenty. Blow it off, and we'll try the body one more time. This time I think it's gonna be nice. Yeah, that's good. So if it's a little tight at the end, you probably need to take a little bit more off. It could technically be the threads in your body that just need to be run just a little bit more, one more time. All right, now let's see here. Cut threads, relief cut, flip blank. Okay, reading my notes. Tap letter position is a great tip. Yeah, and it, you know, if you didn't know that, like you could really struggle with tap, you know, using the dies. Sometimes it's hard to get the section out of your collet. Because it's so short. But yeah, if you don't know that, then man, it can kind of really make things a little bit tough. You know, especially if you're finding that it just, for some reason, it just doesn't really fit. Or, you know, it's not lining up right. I'm not getting a good tapping. The threads aren't cutting well or something. And especially at the end. If you don't flip it, you're not getting like that full cut at the back end of your threads. So it's pretty important that's one of the important ones. All right, so now this is a barrage of a bunch of different drill bits real quick here. And these are the ones that really, you really got to get these things like the right depth. We're doing a lot of them. Some of the things, like there's quite a bit of overshoot. Like as long as you go this, you know, minimum this far, everything will be fine. This is one where like all of them need to line up correctly so that your nib, you know, fits in well. Because there's multiple things going on. So this is the place to pay attention, I guess, and make sure that you got your dimensions correct, or, you know, your depths, I would say. And I usually double check my depths on these things. Jim was saying that there is a step bit. I looked into it and I don't know. I'm not certain that that's much easier, but I haven't tried it, you know. So I need so that could be easier. I think they're only available for Bach nibs though. That's another problem. I'm not switching. And it's like, you can't just go buy it. You have to like message somebody and do all this stuff. So I didn't want to go down that road. It's not, I don't find that this is like that hard. I just want to point out that this is the part where you need to get these things right, or else your nib's not going to really fit in there as well. You know, it's not going to go in right. So I need a K, an N, and an S. Let's see here. So I'm going to drill a K bit, and these can be different. I mean, I'm sure that they are. Most people are not using lettered bits. Something similar to K is probably like a 9/32, maybe a 7mm might even work. I don't know what, like I said, I figured out what works, and so I don't really know exactly what I need to check to see which alternatives you would use if you're not going to use the ones that I do. The other thing is this is for Yovo nibs for number 6, and that's also specific. Like I said, there's some technicalities to things that can get a little overwhelming. Little bit of like engineering going on, let's say. But as long as you establish, if you either just follow somebody else's steps and dimensions and are happy with the pen being whatever that they make, then you're fine, you know. And once you've established your own, then you're fine. You don't have to worry about anything. But if you want to kind of engineer your own pen, then you got to kind of play around with some of these numbers sometimes. So this K bit's going to go all the way through. So I don't have to worry about that one. That one's simple. These next two are kind of important. You have to get these correct relative to one another, basically. And again, it's not like it's rocket science in any way. It's not a big deal. But you do need to get these right, or else your nib's not going to like really fit correctly. So K, and then we go with an N. Things can be a little bit off. One of the dimensions matters, the other one's not so big of a deal. It'll still, your pen will still work. It'll just be maybe not exactly how you want it. So this is a weird one. So this one I'm drilling. So just to give you an idea, like I said, the K bit goes all the way through, and then my N bit, I'm going 0.53 inches deep. Okay, and that needs to be kind of accurate. Now, does it have to be exactly 0.53? No, not really, but you know, I can pretty much get my on my line and I'm good. However, I am going to double check it because I think this is the one that you need to be. I'd have to really I'd have to sit and look at like the diagram. I think this is the one where you need to be at least that depth. You could be like a tiny bit over, but you don't want to be too far over, right? So, and sometimes I have to kind of go back and forth with this if it doesn't work. Even after I've tapped threads and stuff, you know, I've every once in a while had to come back and kind of figure out, okay, well, my nib isn't really working right. What's happening? It's not seating fully in. But you can go back and re-drill things. So don't think that like if it's not working that, oh man, the world ended. You can still get in there and be okay with even, you know, even with threads, depending, you can still kind of get in there and make adjustments if you need to. But I think you're better off if you know the numbers, just double check it with a caliper before you move on to the next step, and you should be good. All right, so we're just going to stop there. I think I might need to take just a little nibble more. But we're going to double check this with the caliper. Like I said, 0.53, or you could go 13.2 millimeters, whichever one you want. I'm going to go with the millimeters because they just seem simple. Now this is one, you need to make sure that you're engaging the correct part of this thing. But pretty simple, you just go like that. 13.22, guys. Dang, I'm good. No, but that illustrates how easy it is. You put a mark, once you figure out the number, you know, try to accurately mark your drill bit and just go to that mark, and it's not that hard. But like I said, if you don't hit some of these numbers, things don't really line up correctly and you might have to make some adjustments. All right, now the S bit is mainly, this is the one that can be kind of, you know, if you mess it up, it's not like the worst thing in the world. What we're doing here, and I don't have a good prop that can probably really show you, I don't know if the camera will really pick this up. Let's see, where's my nib? Shoot, did I lose a nib? Uh-oh. Might have dropped a nib on the floor. That's not good. It's not that big of a deal because it's just a nib that I use to check things, but if I'm stepping on it right now, it will not be used to check things anymore. I'd say that's the one drawback to these things is, you know, you have to buy nibs and they're not necessarily cheap. That would be my, I think one of my main things for like steering towards like the, you know, steering somebody in the direction of getting proficient with doing the roller balls. I think that they're a little bit less costly, I would imagine, with, you know, having to buy stuff. You have to buy the blank, obviously, or make it. Oh, there's the nib. It was sitting right in front of my face the whole time. Okay, so hopefully I can get this on the camera. So what this last step is doing is making this little extra wide portion at the you know, where it actually hits like the nib part on the, I don't know, do you see what I'm doing? Let me get a little pointer stick. Try and illustrate. So the reason that those other numbers needed to kind of line up is because you need to have the right diameter to put these threads on, and if that's kind of in a weird position, it may not work. Like if you drilled too far down, or you know, you've got only so much threads that this, and it doesn't need to be the whole thing. It's just you need to be able to get the threads kind of in the right position within that section. Now this last piece, all we're doing is making the hole wide enough for this little extra step. So worst case scenario, you know, if you go too far, then your nib's just going to sit a little bit further down in the blank. It's not like the worst thing ever. And some people really like that. I think they call it like a hooded nib. It's kind of a neat look, actually. If you don't go far enough, and I'd say that's worse, then you got this like plastic stuff sticking out. Like your blank end is like here, where, you know, where the metal thing is. And you got your nib kind of hanging out and it looks like it hasn't been seated. So you want to go far enough. Typically you're trying to go for flush or so. But if you're a little over, no big deal. If you're a little under, it kind of looks amateurish. And you don't want to look amateurish, right? It's not amateur hour. So like I said, none of these things are like, oh my God, it's so crucial and everything's crazy, and if I don't do this right, you don't have to worry about any of that. And I do have a little mark on here. Basically, you're going about 3/32, and you can always double check things, you know. It's good to kind of understand. This one gets a little confusing with that, where these threads are. For me, it helps to see like an actual, like written out, drawn diagram kind of thing. This, I can check the measurement and see, okay, how far does that need to be? Oh, 2.51 millimeters. That's all I got to, you know, that's as far as I need to go in. And always if you're, I guess one tip, if you're not, like, if you don't really think about it, if you don't know, if you're going to measure, so I need to make a 2.5, it was 2.5. Let me get this back to, like, it was about 2.5 or so. You don't want to measure from the tip, like the point of the drill bit. Okay, so I don't know, most of you are probably like, yeah, no duh. You want to be measuring from like the wing here, okay? Because that tip part in the middle, that's not doing anything. That's not a part of my drilling. You want to measure from the edge, like little wing down there. Okay, so just a couple little tips that hopefully will help. So let me get in here. A lot of times I have to kind of back it out and clear the chips so I can see like what's happening. No, still need to. Get out of my face, chips. Get out of the way, chips. I don't know why it's making so much noise, but it is. I think that's probably good. Now, the problem with this is you can't check to see if that worked, if that was deep enough right now, okay? But that one can be fixed after the fact, right? As long as you don't take this thing out. You know, the next step, we're gonna tap threads, and we can go back and fix that part. But right now, I know that it was 2.5 millimeters is what the depth that I needed. Let's see what I got. And again, you want to make sure that you're referencing the right part of that thing. So that's only 2.13. So my nib's going to be sticking out. Maybe 2.17. So we need to go a little bit deeper with this guy. And this is one of those areas where sometimes you need to know your drill bit, because that black mark is like, I mean, like, I don't know. It's like at least a 64th inch wide, maybe more. So I may, and I don't know offhand, I can't remember, but I probably need to go to the end of that black mark to get this to be the right depth. Because I'm already, that's the front. See, I was barely at the front. And this is the one where you want to be deeper, if anything. You definitely don't want to be short. So let's go back in and let's just see where we're at. I usually don't mess around with all this stuff too much, but still only at 2.4. Let me double check this measurement. It doesn't seem right. Oh yeah. I didn't, so make sure if you're going to measure something, make sure that you've really given it. So 2.37 or so is actually 3/8 is actually the correct width of this thing. Actually, it's probably 2.35 or so. So we're deep enough. Like I said, I'd rather be over than under. And I'm not mad if it's a little over. That's fine. Doesn't bother me in the least. I do have a problem if it's not deep enough. I don't I don't like that. And it's fixable. It's fixable. Okay, so now we need to do our final step. We need to tap the threads for our nib. This is an easy one. 2.43 millimeters is actually what I wrote down for my number on that one that we just did. And I think what that does is it actually gives me enough room to just bury it a little bit. It's not like perfect flush. It's a little buried, and that's kind of how I like it. That makes me feel good. It's kind of hiding, you know. All right, so our final thing. I'm hungry. We went way long today. Like I said, usually this doesn't take that long. Don't use me as like, oh, it's going to take me 3 hours to mill these parts. It shouldn't. It should take you probably like, I mean, I would imagine people that are really proficient at this stuff can probably knock this out in like 20 minutes, honestly. Probably didn't even need to do that much. But I don't think there's really a huge drawback to doing more. Maybe a little bit because this one is see-through. That's where you could become amateur hour a little bit. Like if you tap way beyond the point of where you needed the threads, that can be looked upon as like a sign of like, oh, they don't really know what they're doing, with their pens, or they're lazy or something, like if you're selling, maybe that might, but if you can't see it, then it doesn't really matter either. All right, so final step, we're going to take that nib that I like to use to check things. Did I blow it out? And I'm actually, on this one, I'm also going to come in with the, because like, again, if there's a bunch of junk in the threads, and then you try and start, if I start sticking a nib in there and trying to thread it, that can kind of mess it up. Look at that, smooth. Let's see how I did. Just under the surface, just barely. And then, as Jim Hines always does, he likes to turn the lathe on and have it spin. It is pretty neat looking. So, we're all good. I'm going to actually unscrew this because it's hard to get always hard to get the section blanks out of the thing because they're so short. So short. Got a little thing to pop it out here. Then we can kind of put our pen together halfway and just kind of show you what it's all going to look like here. So we got our section. It's always good to just double check, like I said, but you always want to make sure that your threads are clean and everything if you're doing anything like this before you have fully cleaned them out. I think the problem is, I think I'm going to need to redo and I can do this right now. I'm just going to run my tap. I think my body threads are just a little bit, we're dealing with plastic material. And I think that that's actually the culprit of a lot of this stuff. I think if you tapped all these things into metal, metal doesn't move that much, unless it's super like hot or something like that. Not a bad idea to invest in a T-handle for your taps. If you need to do something like this by hand. I mean, I could chuck this up again, but I don't really need to chuck it up. So get yourself a tap handle, a T-handle, whatever they're called. Am I doing that right? I'm going the wrong way. That's why it's not working. So it's good to kind of have that so it's locked in. And then I can restart this if you just need, because sometimes this happens. You just need to run the threads again. Something got kind of a little bit messed up. Maybe it moved a little bit. Who knows, I might have gone a little farther this time than I did before. So I'm going to blow it out in there. I think there is definitely some junk in there that I want to clean out. There's no harm in redoing the threads, running them again. It's not going to hurt anything. A lot of times you'd be surprised. You blow it out, I'm doing this thing, and then I can still tap it. You don't want to do that too hard on the metal. And still junk comes out. So that just indicates, what we're working with here. Okay. So there we have it. Let's see. I'm not looking at the screen here. The thing is like upside down, so now it's shaking. All right. I don't know. I think this thing's going to look pretty darn good. Like I said, I don't know that lining up all this stuff is really worth my time. Because I could maybe kind of try to line some of this stuff up. Technically, I think this part of the blank actually came from back here, though. And that's another subject, when you're dealing with these bespoke blanks, maybe your natural inclination would be to pull the components out. I'm going to go over to the other, thing over here. Let's see. Uh-oh, is it still working? YouTube's like, oh my God, you're talking too much. Is everybody still there? I'm not sure. I think so. But you know, your first thought might be, if you've got a blank, and I'm going to go get a blank, so hopefully this kind of makes sense. You got, you know, like a full length blank. You got your 8.5 inch or whatever, 8 inch. You got a blank here, right? And your first inclination might be like, oh, I'm going to get the cap from here. I'm going to get the section from here, and I'm going to get the body from here. It just seems to make sense, right? But the problem is, when you put the cap on the pen, now your pen's sitting like this. So you're totally missing this chunk if you're trying to line things up. So what I end up doing is I actually take the section out of one end of the blank. The other issue is the section gets turned down so much thinner than all the rest of the components that there's almost no way that it's going to match anything. So I always just pull it out of one of the ends, and I go for, you know, you're going to see the pen with the cap on more often, or you're actually going to be like looking at it and paying attention. When you're writing with it, you're going to have it in your hand, and the cap's going to be over here, and it's not going to matter, you know. So I always go for that. So that's another little tip that, you know, if you're just getting into this, you might not have thought about. Because I think my initial first few pens, I did that, and like I said, what I noticed was I got the body turned down to whatever diameter, and then the section was so much thinner that even though, and I would even sometimes take like painstakingly, there are ways to make sure after the fact, like after you've done threading, to kind of line, you know, get things lined up. You can take a little bit more material off the shoulder to get a little, to have it turn farther. So there's ways to get everything like lined up on your blanks. And I would go through all that process, but the problem was you've taken off so much material, it's so much thinner than where the body meets it that it doesn't even matter. It's not even the same pattern at that point. So after that, I just gave up worrying about the section, and I take that off of one of the ends, and I try to get the cap and the body, because those are going to be pretty close to the same diameters, and you can get those lined up pretty well. So here and awake, nice. Yeah, right. Cast pens, it doesn't work. So I gave up on that. Most people, I think, do just take the section off of one end. Frankly, you can even you could just have black material or something like that, and just make your section out of a completely different material, which actually looks, you would think, oh, I bought this blank and it's, you know, it's supposed to match. But in some cases, it's actually kind of nice to have to have a contrast in those colors. It just kind of, it's something a little bit, you know, different, I guess. It's like a design element. It just kind of makes things look a little bit kind of neat, depending on what it is, you know, and you'll have to kind of play around with that on your own and see, you know, what's going on. But you can kind of, you know, we've been talking about, oh, do you need to buy like an 8-inch, you know, the big blanks? No, you can just piece things together, or you could, you know, piece lots of things together intentionally to get something different. All right, so that's it, guys. So next week we'll turn these guys up. Again, we'll be using our mandrels to hold it, and then you just turn it like any other pen. I think this is probably, you know, if you're already a pen turner, this is by far the easiest part. The only thing that you need is the mandrel, but they do a good enough job holding everything that this part is pretty simple. There's not much going on, and there's really not a whole lot of shaping and stuff that you can do in the first place with these things. If I started with like a 7/8 inch blank, you know, maybe I could put a little bit more shaping into it, but I just kind of go for pretty soft, you know, lines and everything like that, and it goes pretty well. So I appreciate you guys checking the stream out. Again, don't forget the Cubbies blanks and the Independence blanks, those two team color blanks, they are on sale, 20% off. I had to think about what the sale was. So here's a link to the Cubbies. So what you need to do is enter code Flash 20 to save 20% on those. And I'm going to type out Flash 20. That's the code to save 20% on those guys. And then the Color Lab pigment. So for anybody that's new, hasn't seen what's going on, I came out with my own pigment brand. I got 5 colors so far. I've got Army Green, Navy Green, Navy Blue, Coral, and let's see here, Watermelon Pink, Navy Blue. And these are like, you know, your kind of like opaque liquid pigments. We got Robin Egg Blue. You know, I had to call it Robin Egg. It's really kind of Tiffany blue, like dead on. But you can't call it that, so don't tell them I said so. And then Coral, which is one of my favorite colors out of this line. I don't know, they're all good. So those are the first 5 that I launched. They're on sale for the launch sale, 20% off as well. Pretty awesome stuff. One thing that I was a little bit annoyed with is Turner's Warehouse comes up higher in the search than even my website on Color Lab Pigments. Those bastards. That's okay. Either way, they're getting sold. And then the code for that is Color Lab. So the pigments, that sale ends on Tuesday at like midnight or 11:59 p.m. And then the Cubbies and Independence, and it's just for 4th of July, red, white, and blue blanks. Those guys are going to be on sale. I think the sale ends Monday night at 11:59 p.m., like around midnight. So make sure to get those. With the Independence and Cubbies blanks, though, those are the ones that I'm getting rid of, the square team color blanks. So those are only going to be there until they're gone, and then I'm going to be switching to the round blanks, which is fine. But if you need to have those ones or you're trying to match things, make sure you snag as many of those as possible. And the more that you guys buy of those, the quicker we can switch to the round blanks. I'm super excited. So the Dodgers blanks, the blue and white ones, those are already switched. And then we're just going to filter out all the rest of the square ones. The only problem is I still do have white resin. So I will be refilling some of them, but I'm more excited on certain colors than others to switch. So when they're gone kind of thing. So anyway, so Color Lab, and like I said, Turner's Warehouse has all the stuff that you need to do all this bespoke and regular kit pens and all that. For your turning needs, they got everything you need. They're also carrying the Color Lab pigments though, so there's not going to be a 20% off deal there. As far as I know, I don't think they're doing that. But they will have them. So if you're already buying stuff from them and you need pigment, they got it. So anyway, guys, I hope you had a great 4th of July, and hope you had a good time on the stream today. And so next week we'll get to turning these guys up and finishing up the pen. I can't wait. So there will be a couple things. It's going to take a little while to do the sanding on the inside of these parts because it's so transparent. So that'll take a little bit longer, but we should get everything wrapped up next week. So it should be pretty cool. So anyway, guys, hope you have a great rest of the night, and I'll see you guys next week.